Welcome, folks, to the CC Zone. It's season 2, episode 9. I am Brankles, and I am joined by Orion, as well as TA Light's mid laner, Dr. Phil and Chill. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, pretty good.
Doing all right.
All right, well, let's first start. We are now into the playoffs, guys. I am so excited. Last year when we had the playoffs, it was, obviously we had like 9 teams at the end of the season. It was like the first time split, but this time around we've got 2 different conferences. And starting with you, Dr. Phil and Chill, how are you guys feeling about taking on the defending champs in the first round?
I think it'll be an interesting one. I think it could very possibly be a very exciting series. Our matchup against them in the regular season was not as close as a 2-0 would make it seem. So I think it'll be interesting.
All right,
I do think we'll come out on top, though.
Well, Ryan, I need to get your thoughts. This is a matchup where, obviously you have the defending champs, but, TA Light started off strong, had a bit of a lull in the middle of the season, but, had some, string of wins towards the end. What do you see in this matchup?
So I was kind of thinking about this matchup before going to the podcast, and I was like, well, if you look at it strictly from how this season went, you probably would favor TA Light over Collective. But you also have to remember that Collective was the previous CCS winners, so they have kind of gone through the whole playoff bracket, and they know what it's like to win the entire thing, so they do kind of have that advantage, I would say. I do think it's going to be a pretty close series. It's really, in my opinion, depends on the ton of team that we get from Collective. Are we going to get the overall CCS winners, the dominant team that they were last split, or are we going to get this season's team where they struggle to even barely make playoffs? So I think if we get that team, TA Light should be able to handle business, but I wouldn't count out Collective, even though they are the team that kind of struggled throughout this split.
Well, Dr. Phil and Chill, I got to ask you, you're going up against, obviously people view him as one of the top mid laners in the league, but he's also been kind of a split personality, outside of the name changes. For you, what's it like going up against a guy that's, viewed as one of the top players? Does that just motivate you more, or like what goes into your mindset with that?
Well, I've gotten kind of used to it in this league because Wednesday actually has a lot of very good mids. So it doesn't really affect much anymore. It's more of an expectation at this point. It's not like a surprise thing. It's more of a surprise when the mid is not their quote unquote star player. But it's still something to watch out for. Obviously, they play through mid a lot. I don't think mid is their only strength, which I know people talk about that a lot, but I don't believe that's the entire case. But I do think it's one of their major strengths, and it's just definitely something we're watching.
And would you say the other strength is their ADC?
Their bot lane together, I think, is pretty solid.
Yeah, well, speaking of bot lane, your guys' sister team, in TA Knight with Snow Life and Dallas in the bot lane. For you guys as an organizational standpoint, what's it like seeing that both teams made the playoffs and, TA Knight has obviously they've got other players like Overic is playing really well in the top lane, but this bot lane's been playing really well, especially when they came together.
Yeah, so they've been playing together for a while because the mid, bot, and support are the same as our sister team. Knight has basically become just a variation of it with a different top jungle. And I kind of think it's a bit stronger, so I have a lot of confidence in their ability to make a good run. And I think their bot lane their bot lane specifically is very strong. They have a lot of built up synergy over the last few months since we had the teams form.
Yeah, and Orion, one thing that we noticed that TA Knight was one of those teams that made some changes to their roster. While some teams, fizzled out and burned out towards the end, TA Knight looked like they kept going and getting better and better. Why in this matchup against Dorado, do you feel as though TA Knight has the upper hand in this one, or where do you see Dorado standing right now?
Yeah, I feel like TA Knight is definitely the more favorable matchup. I feel like TA Light and Collective is a little bit closer. I feel like TA Knight should be able to just kind of dictate the game against Dorado. While they have shown to be a good team, I feel like they're a lot more inconsistent. And I think TA Knight, especially since the move with Yolveric going top and Dallas coming in, have looked really consistent. And they've kind of looked on top of their game. I'm really curious to see who Hard Hat Zone ends up choosing in the next round, because if TA Knight goes down into DNX, we've already seen DNX struggle against TA Knight's bot lane, and it was basically just the top half of the map that kind of won them that series against TA Knight in the first place. And with the change with Yolveric going top, it does look like they've been a much more well-rounded team, and you would even argue that Dallas has been performing at a similar level that Yolveric was performing with it as well. Even though I think he's the first team CCS AD carry, even though he's now a top laner. So I am very curious to see how that matchup is going to play out if Hard Hat Zone ends up choosing the winner of whoever wins between TA Light and Collective.
And that's another, wrinkle to this is that Dorado, yes, while they've had their struggles, people have viewed Pepacito as the top, one of the top laners. I just want to see it come to fruition, right? I've heard a lot of talk, and there's games where he has popped off, but there's also games where you're like, well, he gets dumpstered on by, so-and-so, or, hey, he had a great game in the top lane, but it didn't translate to a team victory. So I kind of want to see that come together for them. Maybe see if Sev can unlock the mid lane and try to work out and move to the top lane. Because sometimes I feel as though with Dorado, they get too stuck into the 1-1-1-2, right? It doesn't feel like they go into other lanes as much as other teams. But going on to the other side into the Thursday bracket, Dr. Phil and Chill, my question for you is that we're looking at a PGO squad going up against Sensei squad. And PGO, they've been very Jekyll and Hyde, right? They go from losing to Grinchy Goons to somehow getting the third seed. What do you see from them, and do they have a shot, with Sensei squad?
I think they'll come up on top. I think PGO, their games are on average quite a bit longer than most teams, and I think that's both an advantage and disadvantage against some of the middle of the pack to weaker teams. Obviously not in case in point for their losses against Grinchy Goons, etc. But I think in a long series where the teams are they're not going to get stomped in any one lane, I think they have a good shot into taking those teams, including Sensei squad. Personally.
And Orion, what do you see in this matchup? Do you see this being a battle in the top lane and PGO working through P Huff zone, or do you see this being we're going to end up having a 5v5 team fight, and that's what decides the game?
I would say typically when you have best of 5 series, typically it's really just about kind of how pick and ban goes and which team is able to adapt from what team, what they want their style to be, right? I mean, obviously PGO is known for the kind of team to kind of play through Puff Zone, but for example, let's say Sensei Squad goes into game 1 and they shut down Puff Zone. All of a sudden, PGO really has to adapt and be able to kind of change their mentality in terms of how they actually want to play out the rest of the series, which can ultimately be a really huge factor. It's less of a factor to best of 3. When we've seen it can be a lot more exemplified the longer the series plays out, and also in order to move on to the next series, for the 2 teams that are ahead, Goldfish Gaming and Shadow Z, they'll be able to kind of watch the best of 5 play out, and they'll be able to see, okay, what is their style? What do they want to play? And they'll be able to predict kind of what they're looking to do. So you need to kind of have multiple styles in place in order to be an effective best of 5 teams as the playoffs go forward. I do think the series against PGO and Sensei Squad, while it is 3-6, I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. I do think it is PGO favored, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sensei Squad takes 1 or even 2 games off of them.
All right, and for me, when I look at this matchup, I think that maybe if Sensei Squad can really work through having the jungle be a star in this matchup, maybe try to exploit some of the weaknesses of PGO's long because like as you know, Dr. Phil and Chill said, you know, some of their matches are super long, so maybe they can find a way to, you know, oh hey, what's backdoor and steal some towers and try to put PGO on the back foot on those matchups. But going into our last, you know, quarterfinal matchup, we have TDR versus Horizon Gaming. Now, Horizon Gaming, it just, you know, they've been through so many roster changes or swaps or just changing, you know, things that they do. I don't feel like they are at their full potential, but I don't think finding yourself in that position in the playoffs is the best spot. Whereas TDR took a game off of Goldfish Gaming. Now, say what you want that it was a backdoor and, you know, Goldfish Gaming misplayed it. They still took a game off one the top team in the Thursday division or Thursday conference. So my question to you, Dr. Phil and Chill, is: does TDR have, you know, do they have what it do they have what it takes to take down Horizon Gaming, or do you think Horizon Gaming has a shot of getting back to what made them so dangerous early in the season?
So the games I've watched from TDR, I watched their series against Iconic last week, and I've watched Horizon against Goldfish Gaming where they won 1-2. So that's the extent of my VOD watching or live watching of the two teams. So honestly, that's the matchup I am the least confident in prediction. I think it's gonna be very close. I think both teams have the potential to play really, really well. I also think both teams have the potential to be underwhelming. I think that is the most likely series of week 1 to go to 5, personally, and I think Horizon has a bit of an edge, but I definitely think TDR can come up on top because I think it is going to be very close.
And Orion, how do you feel about this one? Do you think Horizon is, you know, do you think Horizon comes out on top on this one, or is TDR starting to, you know, start cooking with gas and might be able to pull off the upset?
I do agree that this series is probably the closest one to go into a 5-game set. Thursday's group is definitely the group that is obviously the closest. Between 2nd and 6th, there's only one matchmaker setting it apart. The only clear favorite, obviously, is Goldfish Gaming. So I do think both these teams definitely have a lot of potential to kind of play to their strengths. And obviously, TDR has played really solid through Matt. And Horizon Gaming, while they were very dominant in the beginning of the season, they definitely had a pretty major slump. And then also last week losing to PGO as well. So they haven't quite been able to find their footing in some of these games. So hopefully they are able to kind of come out swinging against TDR and show that they can be a playoff team. I personally think TDR is going to win this one in a 3-2 sets. Just because I think they've been playing better. They've actually been playing a little bit more consistently than Horizon has, but I still think it's going to be pretty close.
All right. We'll do some quick predictions then, and we'll start with you, Dr. Phil and Joe. You know, give me your quarterfinal winners.
So I think we're going to beat Collective, us, TA Light. I think it's going to be potentially very close, a 4 to 5 game series. I think TA Knight's going to 3-0 Dorado. I think PGO is going to 3-0 Sensei Squad, but I can also see that going into a 4 to 5 game series, honestly. That's more of a PGO special copium prediction. And I think Horizon's going to 3-2 against TDR, but I can easily see that flipping. Or I could see maybe one of the teams just doesn't show up that day, and it's a lot cleaner than that. Like I said, my knowledge is limited on those two teams. But
well, my predictions is I've got TA Light 3-1 over Collective. I have TA Knight also throttling Dorado 3-0. I do have PGO in a 3-2 series against Sensei Squad, and then I have TDR winning 3-1. I just feel as though that PGO Sensei Squad series is actually going to be closer than we all think, in terms of just like, it might be a situation where each game is like a blowout and then game 5 is super close. But I just haven't been super impressive with Collective this season so far. So like, I think that TA Light is just going to, you know, win that one 3-1. And yes, they'll lose a game, but I think you guys have a realistic chance of just closing game 4 out in a stomp.
yeah, we're very swingy in that regard. Or at least we were. I think we've improved on that a lot. Where games go one way or the other, but I think we've brushed up on the consistency a bit.
Ryan, what's your quarterfinal predictions?
Yeah, so top left. See, honestly, this one's pretty interesting. Kind of like going back what I said earlier. Collective as a whole team, like this entire split, has been very shaky. But we've not actually seen them in the best of 5, and I feel like this team, giving them the opportunity, kind of like for them to say that there's the reason why they won CCS split last year, that they can actually somehow pull it out. So if I was a betting man and I was like really like curious to see like wanting to save my money, I would say TA Light, but I'm actually gonna go with Collective and a 3-2 on this one. I do think TA Light is the better team, but I feel like Collective has more pop-off moments, and sometimes in the best of 5, that's what you really need. TA Knight Dorado should be a pretty clear-cut TA Knight win. Dorado just has been slipping way too much, and TA Knight, especially with the change sitting over at top, has been really, really dominant. They've only dropped 4 games total, which is pretty good considering that they are the 3rd seed of this Wednesday's group. And then going over to Thursday, PGO versus Sensei Squad. I think this series, kind of like what you said earlier, Brinkles, will be a little bit closer, but I don't think it'll be close in game score. I think it'll be a 3-1 or a 3-0 PGO. I don't think Sensei Squad is going to have enough in the tank to beat out PGO at a best of 5. And then TDR Horizon, like I said, I think I said it earlier, I do have TDR winning that one 3-2.
Yeah, no, see, I just feel like, sorry, I've got a soft spot for the best name in the CCS, which is Aquatic Bear. I just have a soft spot for that. But moving from the playoffs, I have some questions for you, Dr. Phil and Chill. And my first one is, what's it like playing for TA Light and being a part of this organization?
It's been fun. So I've known a couple of the players for a while, but a couple are new. I had never met our top already carry. Obviously, it was discussed. I remember on like one of the beginning podcasts that were the result of a tryout. So we were put on a team together, and the intention was to develop a team. It wasn't to outright win a league, but I think we've done good in that regard. I'm happy with how we've been playing in most weeks. Obviously, there's been some slip-ups. Some weeks where some big mistakes happened that shouldn't have happened. There was also some missed opportunities, like in our series against Hard Hat. I think we had the momentum there, but we kind of threw it in one play, and then we just got a mental boomed. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied and enjoy playing on this roster.
Another thing, and for those that may not know, Dr. Phil and Chill was huge in putting together our stats. What was that like for you? I know that you were talking about all-nighters, but take us, peel back the curtain. What was that like?
So it all started because someone said in general that they wanted stats or something, and I kind of just dropped that maybe I'll do it in my free time. So I started, and then a couple people volunteered to help because I asked in general, and it leaked to Flay, and he found out. And then that made it more into a serious thing where I wanted to finish it in time for next week. Originally, it was just going to be something that would be done by week 9 or by playoffs. But yeah, it was quite a big time investment because obviously we didn't have API, and a lot of the screenshots were not optimal. A lot of people were cropping out time, or a lot of people, especially on Thursday, were not even including the players who were playing. Especially on the rosters, which had like subs every week. So it was a bit of an ordeal, but most of it's done now. So,
I mean, your work helps out people like Orion. I mean, Orion here is super smart with the numbers and breaking down stuff. So, Orion, did that help you out a lot?
Yes, I mean, stats are always important. It's pretty hard to argue with numbers, right? I mean, obviously, like, if you have players that are performing at exceptionally high level and their stats kind of back them up, then obviously it's very easy to kind of point at a person and say, hey, this guy's a really good player, and here's why. The eye test doesn't always do players justice. Numbers are a lot more concrete and hard evident, which, obviously, Dr. Phil and Chill did I would say, a fantastic job, not having a whole lot to work with, basically going through by hand, individually, working through every single person. I'm not sure if you're the only person to work on it, but if anyone else worked on that stat sheet, like huge kudos to you. You did a fantastic job. Hopefully, we will be able to have the API next split or future splits, make our people's lives a little bit easier. But so far, I really appreciate the stats page.
Yeah, week to week manually, it wouldn't have been too bad, but it's just doing it all at once at the end. And like I said, it was manually, so there could be mistakes somewhere. Even I've caught a couple recently. Mm-hmm. So it still has to be taken with a grain of salt in that regard. Obviously, there's human error. It's hard to solve. But it's pretty. I'm pretty confident in the general accuracy. I was double checking things. It's just some things can slip through.
So when you were putting together those stats, was there any data point or trade that surprised you?
Well, I was very interested in looking at different, team strengths and weaknesses and how Thursday compares to Wednesday and all that. And I noticed a few things. I was surprised that Jinx is doing so poorly in Wednesday compared to Thursday. But again, a lot of the stats are sample size based. If there's a player with only 5 games and their stats are crazy, I don't really compare that directly to someone with 20, right? Which is why some players aren't included. I didn't include on the main page people with 1 series, because in a league where a lot of teams have a bunch of roster swaps or subs, it's really hard to get an accurate sample size for every player. But some things that were more interesting were just who are the players who seem to be doing really well, even if they're not on the most amazing team results wise, and a couple of people stood out to me. And also it really helps identify how some of the better teams play, and anyone can now look at that and maybe gauge their strengths and weaknesses a little more accurately, instead of obviously it's better to look at the games over if you watched every game. I mean, if you look at one game, it could just be an off day for somebody, or it could be just a really good day for somebody, but a mixture of both really helps with scouting and learning how other teams play and how they succeed or fail. So,
well, Ryan, I was going through some of the data, and I remember talking with with Dr. Phil and Chill and some others in another chat, where just to put in perspective of how dominant Okami was, and seeing the actual data that showed it, it's pretty stark. I mean, this man is on a different, this player's on a different level compared to anything that was happening in the mid lane for, the other Wednesday teams. Ryan, how do you feel about Okami, and now that we have the data to back it up?
Yeah, I would say Okami's definitely one of the best mid laners, I would say, in entirety of CCS. I would say he is probably the best mid laner in Thursday's group. He has definitely been one of the bigger reasons why Goldfish was able to maintain such a dominant streak of going completely a 9-0 match record. The guy has been playing multiple different styles and playing them to a pretty high efficient level. I mean, he kind of has the stats to back it up. Overall, I do think that him and the rest of Goldfish are going to be able to kind of take that momentum and all the way up to the grand finals. I'm curious to see who's actually going to make it out of Wednesday's group, because Wednesday is a little bit closer, I would say, in terms of who's actually going to make it all the way through. But Goldfish should be the clear-cut winner of Thursdays.
Well, just because I see Mossy saying super weak take. Well, in my prediction, I have them choosing PGO, and then I have PGO beating them 3-2. So that's my predictions.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because wasn't it last year that Collective also chose? Yeah, the Collective chose PGO after PGO had some trash talking, and Philly B reached out to me and was like, "Oh, hey, we're definitely choosing PGO this week." So hey, I want to see that happen. But I am very, Dr. Phil and Chill, I've been very impressed with with the stats that you had put together. Because it does really paint a picture. You can do the whole eye test, oh, hey, I'm looking at the score sheet and I'm like, all right, this player did well, this player. Well, when you compare that to how long the game has gone, what was happening in this situation, Actually, one of my favorite score sheets that I've looked at so far was Goldfish Gaming versus Grinchy Goons in Game 1 in Week 9. Just trying to wrap my head around that draft. But my next question for you though is when you guys, as you said, you tried out for TA Light, and I know that you've been around different organizations. What really sold you on being with this group?
It's the first team in a while where I haven't had any like major issues with anyone personally. Like usually, like on teams, sometimes when you're on a new roster, and everyone's a fresh tryout, some players could have very poor mental or just toxicity problems if everyone's like completely new to each other. And this team was actually very solid in that regard. Especially the players I didn't know, like Top and AD, their attitudes towards the game and improving are very positive and constructive, which I really enjoy. So I got a lot of confidence in the long term with that team, which is why I enjoyed sticking around, and will hopefully continue to.
Yeah, and I'm looking at your guys' roster. I mean, UBC Souter and Spoozy, ADC ARAMs, Sinikai support. Who on your roster is who's the one is like the glue, like the one that makes you guys laugh or brings you guys all together? Like who would you say is the class clown of your group?
Probably me or Spoozy in most regards. Spoozy's the one that creates the most humorous moments, at least in my opinion.
Well, I mean, taking a look at your, with the rest of your roster, if you took ADC ARAM out and you put Flay in, what's your guys' record and why is it worse than Zeal Blues?
Are 4v5s allowed?
I think so. I don't think there's any particular rule that says you can't play a 4v5. Might have to ask Flay,
Oh,
though.
sorry. I guess Zeal Blue doesn't have a mid.
Oh man, yeah, there we go. Oh, I guess.
Sorry, I know the mid a bit. That's not just out of nowhere, but
Sheesh.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how we compare to Zeal Blue with Flay as AD carry. I don't think that's. I don't think Flay would drag the team down enough to go beyond that, but I also don't think we'd be fourth. I have a small bit of confidence that he can pull his weight a bit. Although I've never seen him play, so I have no idea.
I actually have his match history pulled up. He plays in Titan esports. I think it's the Titan League or something. He went 0-8-8 on a Nautilus, so I don't know if that helps you or not.
We'll just put him on Ashe every game. And tell him to position, not in a troll way, and it'll be good.
Well, there you go. My next question is that obviously, you guys have your sister team in TA Knight. And you guys, with TA in general, I mean, they've got like 50 teams, spread out across the region. So for you guys, what was it like when you heard that there was a new team being, brought in, and then the fact that, you guys both made the playoffs?
Sorry, new team as in like they were acquired and then we kind of just
yeah. So like
over?
there's another team from your guys' organization coming in because they got they bought the spot, so it was like another part of the puzzle for Team Ambition.
It was interesting. Originally, I was a little afraid because like they're taking our subs because obviously Dallas and Hadio. No, Hadio was not. No, I think in this league he was. We're taking our sub spots and we were kind of running out of substitutes, but that was the only real negative about that. I think the team itself has become, as it is now, very solid. I think they are a very strong contender for winning Wednesday. And don't really have too many opinions on another TA team being on there because I'm new to the org, so wasn't very surprising. I've seen plenty of orgs have 2 teams in the league.
All right. Well, Orion, if both, I assume that both TA teams are going to move on to the semifinals. Who do you think Hard Hat's going to take?
I would assume Hard Hat chooses TA Light. I think TA Knight, especially the past couple of weeks, have been performing at a much higher rate. And I feel like TA Light, while the series against Hard Hat Zone was a little bit closer than a lot of people probably remember, I still feel like Hard Hat Zone would probably choose the lesser of opponents. I mean, obviously, if they want to go ahead and knock out TA Knight, that would be the time to do it. But at the same time, you risk yourself being potentially knocked out yourselves before you get to the conference finals. So I would assume they choose TA Light, but ultimately it is Hard Hat Zone's decision. I feel like they should be able to be either team, but I think TA Knight would be a little bit closer than what TA Light would be.
So for you, Dr. Phil and Chill, if you guys do get like if you win this week and then you get chosen by Hard Hat, how would you feel about that matchup? I know that's kind of looking ahead of, obviously, you're not taking on Collective yet, but, having to take on a top tier team like that, would that be, would that mean a lot to you guys, considering the fact that, as you said, this was supposed to be just a development team and you guys are top 4 in a conference?
I think it'll be interesting. I've never, laned against their starting mid, because obviously when we played them, he swapped bot and they put their sub mid in, which all their losses are when they don't have their starting 5. I don't think they've dropped a game with their starting 5.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. I can't make an accurate prediction for how well we'll do into their starting 5 if they choose to play that. I think in either case, it's a good test for our development over the last few months, and whether we 0-3 them or we take games off of them or we upset them. I think it would be an upset if we win, obviously, but I don't think any of those are off the table completely. Part of that is, I haven't seen those starting 5 play together.
Well, Dr. Villachel, you did mention earlier that this is the first team you felt like there wasn't you didn't have major issues with another player. And so my question is, what's been your experience with the CCS? I know that the CCS is still a relatively young league compared to others, but what's been your experience?
Pretty positive, to be honest. I can't think of any solid negatives. I think it's been pretty good. I think content-wise, it's above other leagues by quite a bit. One of my biggest issues with a lot of leagues is they don't put out anything. They maybe do 2 podcasts, a split, and they don't do any written articles or anything. And I think this has been a big boon. I guess one of my biggest negatives originally was the lack of stats, but obviously that was fixed.
Yeah. You want it on a one-man mission out in the desert.
I wouldn't say one man. I had a lot of help, as I
True
mentioned in the end of the sheet. But yeah, overall, went above expectations for a quote-unquote first season. I know it's technically a second season, but it's referred to as a first season usually.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your points about with the content, because for us here at the CCS, we try to make we make the content for the players. I don't make a reaction video or the playoff hype video or the podcast so I can go home or go get done and be like, oh, look what I did. It's no, I just enjoy making this stuff for you guys, because you guys are the players. You're the ones that are out there playing the game. So I do think that it's kind of like giving you guys something to to be a part of. And it's not just hey, I show up to this Discord channel and then I log in for League and that's all I do. So that's why I do it. But as we're getting close to the end of the show, I know we never know what happens, right? maybe some people, move on for different teams or whatnot. But what's in the future for you, Dr. Phil and Chill?
Honestly, it's kind of up in the air as to how results go on each roster. I don't know if things are going to move around or if things are largely stay the same. I'd like to play on 2 teams again, but my other team, I don't know if it's going to continue yet. So that's the up in the air part. I'd like to maybe look at playing in the next split as well for CCS. I think it'd be interesting. And I don't really have I don't have too many like other desired leagues that would, come above. So I look forward to hoping to play again in this league.
Yeah, well, I hope you say because I enjoy watching you play, and I enjoyed the fact that you put the stats together. All right, well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the CC Zone. We are getting ready for playoffs. We got matchups on Wednesday and Thursday. Orion, I know you're calling a game, right?
Yep. I am the CCS TA Light versus Collective.
All right, there we go. So we got our matchups that are coming up. Don't forget to fill out your brackets. There's a little bit of a competition going on. Yes, you can beat Flay. I know that he rigged it for the play-in tournament or the lock-in tournament. So we'll definitely all try to beat him this time around. But like I said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on the CC Zone.